UFOs have been all over the news recently, from the release of the 2004 Nimitz encounter to the recent revelation that the US is still currently investigating UFO claims. The topic has received a lot of attention. Previously, UFO sightings were almost exclusively reserved for conspiracy theorists, constrained to that separate, hidden part of the internet you only reach late at night after going down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos. Personally, I've always been fascinated by the topic. I'm a major skeptic, but that in no way diminishes my interest. A lot of people instantly dismiss those who follow such events as lunatics or conspiracy theorists. And there are those who believe every blurry picture or speck of light in the sky is a UFO piloted by aliens. Neither standpoint is useful. I think we should all be interested for two reasons. One, maybe they actually do exist and are real. And two, these sightings could be secret aircraft in development by the US, Russia, or even China. Either way, I would like to find out. But first, this episode is sponsored by Swagbucks. Odds are you've probably already heard of the name before, but not exactly sure what they do or how it works, or maybe you're already using them. Swagbucks allows you to make money online. You can pay with cash or gift cards for shopping online, taking surveys, polls, watching videos, and even playing video games. There are several options. So if you have any free time, you could be earning real money with them. You also get $5 just for using my link in the description. It's real, it's legit, they have been written about by many outlets and won several awards. I've actually had an account with them for years now, before I even started this YouTube channel. You can get discounts and gift cards from tons of places. Amazon, something I know I could use, Walmart, eBay, even Starbucks, AMC theaters, Home Depot, and many, many more. So use that extra time and make actual money and earn real rewards. The link is down in the description. First, I think it's important to better define UFO. UFO does not mean aliens. It simply means unidentified flying object. Many people today use the term UFO to mean aliens, but I believe the actual definition is much better. You see something in the sky and cannot readily identify it. Odds are it's an aircraft, drone, or some other natural phenomena. So it's perfectly fine to call it a UFO until you or someone else can identify it. But to make that incredibly huge jump from saying that you don't know what it is to saying that it's absolutely aliens is ridiculous. We know aircraft, drones, and natural phenomenon exist, but we have no conclusive proof that aliens exist, let alone are visiting Earth. So it's a matter of taking these reports, removing those which can be identified as birds or planets, and looking at those which remain. Sometimes though, there just isn't enough information available to dismiss a report. A few blurry pictures might not be enough to positively identify the object as an airplane, and data can be deceptive. It may appear as if the object is performing unexplained or impossible maneuvers from the limited information available, but that does not mean it is actually doing that. Optical illusions are a perfect example of this. Shapes may look like they're moving, but they're not. But what about those sightings from highly trained, reputable people? Those who are not otherwise interested in the topic. We recently had on retired US Naval fighter pilot Vincent Aiello on our Tech Ops podcast. You can find it here in the upper right if you're interested. He was on board the aircraft carrier that day when the now famous incident took place. It was his fellow pilot and friend, retired US Naval Commander David Fravor, who was the one actually in the air and tried to intercept this unknown flying object. Fravor is by no means a conspiracy theorist, and after the incident in 2004, never went on to promote or push his story in the media. It wasn't until over a decade later that the event made headlines, and even then, it was the media who tracked down and contacted him, not the other way around. The story basically goes, the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier was off the coast south of San Diego when they detected an object on radar. Fravor, who was already in the air at the time, flew out toward the location of the contact. He saw what he first believed to be a helicopter, hovering right above the surface of the water, but it created no rotor wash. As he descended to get a better look, the object started ascending. He maneuvered around to try to get behind the object when it suddenly took off at incredible speeds and disappeared. The interesting thing about this one is, unlike how I talked about previously, about perspective, his wingman was still up at a higher altitude and saw the whole thing from another point of view, so it wasn't an optical illusion. Also, if you want to hear his story directly from him, and in much more detail, check out Vincent Aiello's Fighter Pilot podcast interview with him, linked here in the upper right. A little bit later, another aircraft from the carrier actually recorded video of the craft using an AT FLIR. The object, which has been called a Tic Tac, can be seen in the video, both in infrared and in visual modes. After tracking the target for a short time, it takes off faster than the AT FLIR can keep up with. There's been other footage that's been released that was recorded on the east coast of the US years later, which is often confused with this incident, but show a similar looking object also captured on AT FLIRs. These cases are without a doubt strange and incredibly intriguing. Another one of my favorite UFO cases is the Lonnie Zamora incident. Zamora was a police officer in New Mexico who came across an egg-shaped object. The object landed, and when Zamora got around the hill, blocking his view, he saw two beings walking around the craft. He estimated that he was less than 200 meters away, and as he approached what he first thought might be a car crash, the craft took off and disappeared over the mountains. Footprints, imprints of landing legs, and burnt brush were found at the scene and photographed. These are the actual photographs here. The police and the military arrived and investigated. Neither could explain what occurred, but both stated that the scene and evidence matched perfectly with Zamora's description of the events. The craft took off with a blue flame, reminiscent of a welding torch, so it's not like those reported of typical UFOs. The incident took place in 1964, which led to theories that the craft was some sort of prototype of the Apollo program's lunar module. But the test vehicles for Apollo weren't built and flown until 2 years later. White Sands missile range is only 10 to 20 kilometers away from the site, and they actually did do some testing of different components of the Apollo program during that time. We know the US military also messed around with many different types of small, strange-looking craft in that time period, so I doubt it was anything alien. But what is more interesting is finding out exactly what it was. Was it some sort of top secret craft that we still do not know about, that's never been declassified like others? Many UFO stories like to point out the credibility of the observer, that he was respected in the community, never lied, or was a police officer and had nothing to gain from the story, but eyewitnesses are the worst form of evidence. There was a UFO sighted by multiple police officers in the early morning in Georgia in the US. They saw the object in the sky and chased after it at high speeds. The stories all focused on how credible and honest the police officers involved were. It turned out that the object they were chasing was the planet Venus. Venus passes by Earth every 584 days, and as it does, it's very visible in the early morning. So much so that Venus is nicknamed the Morning Star, and is incredibly bright, one of the brightest objects in the sky, and is regularly misreported as a UFO. Many people are also under the impression that the US or other nations' governments are covering up the existence of such craft, or even working with aliens. Area 51 is a famous one that everyone's heard of. Roswell, by far the most famous UFO incident. Bob Lazar, who claimed he worked on alien craft at a site just south of Area 51. There are endless rumors and theories and claims, so it's really impossible to go through each one. But my thinking is such a secret will be way too large to be kept secret. If the government was working with aliens, or even knows about them, but trying to keep it quiet, many people would have to be involved. There is no possible way to keep something that large, that secret, for that long. Just look at all the leaks that come out. NSA spying, CIA drug trafficking, and there are many more examples of much smaller secrets compared to the hiding of the existence of extraterrestrial life. But those got out. People cannot keep secrets. There's a famous quote attributed to Benjamin Franklin that says the only way 3 people can keep a secret is if 2 of them are dead. Cases like that of Lonnie Zamora and David Fravor show that these cases aren't swept up by the military and kept secret by the government as you see in movies. Both stories got out, and the people involved openly discussed the events, without any orders or warnings from the government not to. But the actual interesting part, to me at least, is the recent news that the US government is still actively investigating reports of UFOs. These investigations serve 2 purposes. 1, to make sure that these strange sightings are not advanced craft from China or Russia invading US airspace, and if so, figure out how they work. And 2, people in the government are probably just as curious of UFOs as the rest of us, and looking into these sightings for the same reason that we do. They simply want to know if these reports are some sort of threat to national security, or are they just misidentified everyday objects like aircraft or natural phenomena. It's not some evil, shadowy government conspiracy. Most people know of Project Bluebook, a secretive US government study on UFOs in the 1950s and 60s. But these type of investigations were always believed to have all been in the past. Recently, it's been reported that a project by the name of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program was investigating such claims from 2007 to 2012. Now it's actually come out that they're still actively investigating these sightings. But these are by no means the massive budgeted, dark, secretive government programs that you see in the movies. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program only had a budget of $22 million over its entire 5-year run. That's not much money. And word of these projects have, and still are coming out. They are not top secret. And even the seemingly high-profile cases, like that of David Fravor, were not kept secret. It was not classified. He, nor anyone else involved, was ever ordered to keep quiet about the incident. The people involved thought it was a strange experience, but moved on with their lives, and the incident was all but forgotten. Another problem is, it is incredibly easy to create fake UFO videos. Photorealistic 3D models of UFOs can be made, or even purchased, and thrown into a compositing program to combine it with real footage. Even shaky camera movements can be matched with software using motion tracking and motion blur. In a half hour, you can have a decently convincing UFO video to trick your friends, and with a little more effort, trick millions online. So unfortunately, you really can't trust any footage. Short of obtaining actual physical evidence, or one landing in the middle of Times Square, proof that these alien craft are real is almost impossible to verify, but at the same time impossible to disprove. For every video that turns out to be fake, or simply a strange cloud formation or military aircraft, there are nearly 100 more videos that pop up. There is a famous analogy, often goes by the name of Russell's teapot. The idea is that if someone claims there is a teapot orbiting the sun, that must be correct, because no one can prove it as false, as a teapot is too small to be seen with even a telescope. Just because you cannot disprove something does not make it true. This is something I've found many UFO believers get wrong. They find a video or picture and say, because you cannot explain what it is, therefore it must be proof of aliens. And that is key. You cannot eliminate all explanations you could think of and then identify something. We don't know everything. Ball lightning is a perfect example of an unexplained natural phenomenon, even today. So, until they start appearing over the world's largest cities like Independence Day, I think extreme skepticism, but intrigue, is the most reasonable response to any claim.